And my next guest is running against Dr. Oz. He has put together his own star-studded list of Republican endorsements, including Texas Senator Ted Cruz and former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, who are all backing the former Bridgewater Associates CEO and Pennsylvania Senate candidate David McCormick. Dave, great to see you. Thanks very much for being here this morning.
Hey, Maria. Good to be with you.
Well, the pressure is on. You're about a week away from your primary race, and you had President Trump talking about you the other night in that rally. He said, look, Dave McCormick is a nice guy, but he's not MAGA. So tell us, are you MAGA? Are you Make America Great Again? Are you a MAGA candidate?
Yeah, well, we're sprinting down the home stretch here, and this is an incredibly important primary. And yes, I'm running on President Trump's Great America First agenda. I think President Trump did a great job for Pennsylvania. And I'm running as the person who's battle-tested and Pennsylvania true and can actually win this primary, win this race. It's going to be the biggest Senate race in history. The Democrats are going to throw everything they can at it. And then someone who can go to Washington with the experience and the conservative values, the America First conservative values, to actually make a big difference. So yes, I am. And listen, President Trump endorsed Mehmet Oz, and I understand why he's doubling down on that, because Mehmet Oz is really struggling. He's not getting momentum. And the reason he's not getting momentum is he's not conservative. And you can go back and look at his entire track record, whether it's his views on pro-abortion or pro-Obamacare or anti-fracking or pro-transgender transitions for kids or anti-gun. He's got a whole lifetime and the last 20 years, in his own words, of taking positions that are completely opposed to Pennsylvania voters and Pennsylvania conservatives. And so this isn't really about anybody's endorsement. This is about a race between Mehmet Oz and I to determine who can best represent Pennsylvania as America First conservative.
And you've said you're battle-tested, a military man yourself, so you are well-versed on the issues in terms of foreign policy, but you're also a business guy. You come from Bridgewater. I want to talk to you about the business issues because inflation is the #1 issue on the minds of the American families today. We're getting the Consumer Price Index and the Producer Price Index out later this week. It follows the Federal Reserve raising interest rates by 0.5 point last week, the biggest rate hike in more than 2 decades, David. Should you get this Senate seat, what are you going to do in Pennsylvania to make life easier for Pennsylvanians on the inflation and interest rate front?
Well, listen, Joe Biden's economic agenda has been a disaster for our country and a disaster for Pennsylvania. And I'm someone who grew up on Main Street in Pennsylvania. We're a one-company town, the McGee Carpet Mill, and I watched those jobs going away over time. And then I'm someone who actually ran a company in Pennsylvania that created 600 jobs. And so I've had a lot of business experience, and there's 3 things I do. First, you've got to stop this excessive spending under President Biden. We've got to block that. We've got to have a majority in the Senate and the House and great conservative leaders to push back on that. Second, we've got to change our energy policy. Joe Biden's energy policies are an absolute disaster, and they're contributing mightily to inflation, and also they're holding back on our economic growth. So energy dominance has to be a goal, and policies to support that. And then finally, we've got to go back to the pro-growth economic agenda that President Trump put in place. We should make his tax cuts permanent. We should make that deregulation agenda permanent. And that's part of getting through this moment. And we've got a real risk of stagflation, almost a return to the late 70s, where we have inflation, the economy slows and goes into recession. And it's a very difficult position for policymakers. Joe Biden's put us here. We need strong conservative leaders with business experience to get us out of this.
All right. Well, let me ask you about China, because President Trump is attacking you for working at Bridgewater and helping the CCP, managing the CCP money. So, David, I want to ask you about this reliance that America has on products made in China. During the pandemic, we learned that 90% of our underlying components of prescription drugs are made in China. In fact, through their propaganda networks, they threatened us that they weren't going to send us prescription drugs when we really needed it during the pandemic. We also are, relying on semiconductors made in Taiwan and elsewhere in Asia. So what are you going to do? Pennsylvania is a manufacturing place. Why aren't we making these things in Pennsylvania? And what can you tell us? Were you managing the CCP's money? Are you in bed with China? What do you want to say?
Well, I absolutely agree. We should reduce our dependency on China in semiconductors and pharmaceuticals and other things. We need to continue the policies that President Trump put in place fair trade. That's why Bob Lighthizer, who was the spearheaded President Trump's China policy, has endorsed me. And listen, I'm a guy with 9 years of experience, almost a decade, fighting the communist ideology. I negotiated at the highest levels of government against the Chinese, someone who was viewed as a very strong hawk 15, 16 years ago, and someone who's done business around the world in China and other countries, just like President Trump did. Maybe something like 2% of Bridgewater's business was in China. But President Trump knows that, and that's why he had asked me to serve in a number of senior positions in the national security arena in his administration, and why I served on his defense policy board. And this is an area where Mehmet Oz has absolutely no credibility. He's got business ties. He's got money from coming in from China all over the place. His baby care products, which are manufactured in China and sold in China and the United States. Dr. Oz Sleep.com, manufactured in China. A deal with the Chinese propaganda machine to syndicate his show. So I'm the guy who actually understands how to go toe-to-toe with China, and no one in the Senate has the military experience and the economic experience to lead that charge. And so I not only think I'll be strong on China, I'll be unique on China in the experience that I can bring.
Well, we have to point out that I don't think there's been a tougher Secretary of State than Mike Pompeo when it comes to the CCP and pushing back on the CCP's bad behavior. And you were with him, what, last weekend?
Yeah, no, he came into town. I've known the secretary for most of my adult life from my days at West Point. And he's endorsed me. Mike Huckabee and Sarah Huckabee have endorsed me. Ted Cruz has endorsed me. Bob Lighthizer's endorsed me. Rick Santorum. So I've got strong conservative support. And I think those that are experts on China know that I'll be a leader on China. But in the end, Maria, this isn't about endorsements. This is about who can go authentically to the people of Pennsylvania and make the case that they can win the primary, win the general election, and be an America First conservative in Washington and really change the game. America's going in the wrong direction. It's a disaster, and we need leadership to take it the other way. And I'm making progress on that. I feel that momentum when I'm driving across the state, and we've got 7 days to go, and I feel a lot of optimism for our future and for my candidacy.
Where does Pennsylvanians stand on this leaked Supreme Court draft opinion on abortion? We had pro-abortion protesters targeting the homes of Supreme Court justices all weekend. They're targeting Samuel Alito's home tonight. He had to be moved to a safe space after protesting the homes of Chief Justice John Roberts and Justice Brett Kavanaugh over the weekend. No comment whatsoever on this from the White House.
Yeah.
What do you say?
Yeah, I saw those reports, and really a tragedy and disgraceful that their safety would be at risk. If this leaked memo becomes the court's decision, that would be a great victory for the protection of innocent life. I'm a pro-life candidate, and that would put the decisions back in the states and in the hands of the voters where they belong. But this is, again, an area where Pennsylvanians can see right in front of them the contrast between myself and Mehmet Oz. Mehmet has said he's not a social conservative. He's actually accused the pro-life movement of picking fights, and he's really adopted the language of the left. And here we see in real time that the left is becoming extreme on this issue and really creating great discord in our country as the Supreme Court works through what's a very important landmark decision.
All right, David, we will be watching this very critical week ahead of the primary next week in Pennsylvania. Thank you, sir. We'll be watching. Good to see you,
Thank
David
you.
McCormick.
Good to be with you.
Thank you, David. We want to tell our audience we have extended an invitation to Dr. Mehmet Oz several times. We keep hoping that he will join us on Mornings with Maria. Unfortunately, he has canceled a few times. We'll keep trying. We'll be right back.